Today I want to talk about Caleb Williams recruiting Emeka Egbuka and Prophet Brown to USC and what I think of as wow. And all that's coming up after the bumper.
Don't be cornering me. Hold up. Time. You gotta help me with that corner shit.
What's up, kinfolk? It's RJ Young. I am not on a step mill. Consider hitting the like and subscribe button because I upload a video every single day. It's always college football related, sports related. We have a good time. Today is an eventful day. And man, we have had Jordan Hancock commit to Ohio State. We've had Terrence Ferguson commit to Alabama, and that's number 1 and number 2 in the 247 Sports Composite. And in his SI blog, Caleb Williams has said, I'm coming after Emeka Egbuka, who is the number 1 wide receiver in the 2021 class, and a guy that Ohio State wants in the worst way. And then we had Prophet Brown also announced that he is committed to USC. Now, let's start with that news because I haven't spoken about that one, but Prophet Brown is classified as an athlete, some running back, some cornerback out of Monterey Trail. He expects to play a little bit of cornerback at USC, and this is a big win for USC because Dante Williams coming through like he knows what to do. And then Prophet Brown was also wildly interested in Oklahoma, and up until fairly recently, it felt like Oklahoma was going to win his commitment, and then not only do they not win his commitment, you see Caleb Johnson commits to Oklahoma earlier last week or late last week, but he is able to give Clay Helton yet another win on the recruiting trail. And this is just a dude that will not say die. And, after 2 double-digit win seasons, has trashed back-to-back seasons like 5 and 7 and then going, 8 and 5. And all of a sudden we think he's going to get fired for 2 straight years and he's still hanging around. He has fired the entire defensive staff, brought in new defensive guys, and expects Keaton Slovis, Graham Harrell, and what I think could be the best foursome of wide receivers in the country to lead him, all while securing these dudes from, all over the country, but mostly in the California area, where it looks like most of the dudes grow up wanting to go to USC or some variation of that, stay on the West Coast, don't want to come out to Oklahoma, and Prophet Brown is in with them. Meanwhile, Caleb Williams is said in his blog that he's coming after a friend of his in Jaleel Farouk, who has been crystal balled to Oklahoma as a wide receiver, and he is a 4-star wide receiver, and he would be an outstanding get out of the DMV area. But also, look, man, I think it's interesting that he's out with, I'm trying to get Emeka Egbuka to get to Oklahoma. And the reason that that's fascinating to me is Emeka Egbuka can really swing the pendulum either way here, because if Oklahoma were able to land Egbuka and Kamar Wheaton, 2 guys that they really want to join that 2021 class, that's 3 5-stars, and that helps ensure that you have a top 10 class. Right now, Oklahoma's on the outside of that top 10 looking in, but it also means that you would keep the number 1 wide receiver out of Ohio State's plans for the second straight year, because that's what it's looking like, right? Oklahoma picks up the number 1 wide receiver in the 2019 class in Jaden Hazelwood, and then Ohio State picks up the number 1 wide receiver in the 2020 class in Julian Fleming. Now, they are both fighting over the number 1 wide receiver in the 2021 class, and Egbuka has been slow playing his recruitment. He understands who he likes and who he doesn't. Both Ohio State and Oklahoma are getting plenty of buzz, so is Clemson, among others. Washington, the in-state school, is still in it. But Dennis Simmons gets to show the receipts, right? CeeDee Lamb goes in the first round of the NFL draft. Marquise Brown goes in the first round of the NFL draft. Dede Westbrook wins a Biletnikoff Award and is a Heisman finalist. And he's collecting a nice check for the Jacksonville Jaguars, gets to the second contract. Now, for Ohio State, the only knock against them is they haven't had a first-round draft pick at wide receivers since 2007. And that's Ted Ginn Jr., who is Father Time in the NFL, and Anthony Gonzalez, who is so old that he ran for office here not too long ago. But you look at Michael Thomas, who's got, 99 rating in Madden, and then you look at guys like Curtis Samuel, and then you look at guys like Paris Campbell. And they have had dudes that have come out and been really good at Ohio State here in the past 10 years. Brian Hartline's also been doing a really great job of not just recruiting but developing, and we'll see what Julian Fleming is able to do, right? I think he's going to be great. I think that Ohio State wide receiving group, along with USC, could be just monstrous. I mean, you're going to have Garrett Wilson in the slot full-time. You're going to have Chris Olave and Mookie Cooper and Jackson and Jigma Smith and Julian Fleming. You have dudes over here that you absolutely can just go to work on people with, and Justin Fields is just a better quarterback than Keaton Slovis, and that would be the reason to pick Ohio State over a USC. But this year, with USC playing that conference-only schedule, they actually have an opportunity to win 8 out of 10 games, and I would not be surprised to see them in a setting where they could be in the college football playoff just by winning a Pac-12 championship because they don't have to play Notre Dame or Alabama this year, which is them dodging a bullet. Meanwhile, if Williams is able to actually get that dude to join the 2021 class with him and keep him out of Ohio State's coffers, that's all she wrote on the greatest recruiting class of all time, and you open the door for an Alabama to finish with the number one class in the country. This after it looked like just months ago Alabama was going to have a hard time getting into the top 10. Now, not only have they made it into the top 10, they vaulted into the top 10 and into number 2 in just 3 days, all right? With Tommy Brockermeyer, James Brockermeyer, and now Terrence Ferguson, you have one of the best offensive line recruiting classes that I can remember in recent memory. J.C. Latham goes along with those guys. And then if you get to add a quarterback like a Jalen Milroe, you get to really challenge Ohio State for that number one class, and you could have 2 teams that finish above 305 in the 2021 247 Sports team rankings, which is just nasty. It's nasty. Like, that doesn't happen, right? I mean, one of those teams finishing above 310 or 305, cool. We could see that, but having them both finish there, especially during a pandemic, when we had an extended dead period basically since March 11th, nobody's been able to make any visits. Everything has been done over FaceTime, Zoom, and Twitter. And yet and still, Nick Saban, Ryan Day continue to out-recruit everybody else. Kirby Smart has lost out on guys like Terrence Ferguson and, of course, Jordan Hancock, 2 dudes that are in-state recruits that he usually keeps an eye on and is able to land. We could still end up with a top 5 recruiting class because if you look at how they've been recruiting just player for player, the average is around 94, 95, right? For perspective here, if you remove the punter from Ohio State's class, they're at 96. We've had like 2 classes in like the last 10 years that finished with a 94 rating. It's really hard to do. And with Ohio State being at 19 commits and with Alabama being at 15 commits, it's going to be even more difficult for anybody to make up any kind of ground there. That said, if Corey Foreman and JT Tuimoloau decided to go to Oregon, then we're talking about Oregon in a different way. But Tuimoloau is looking between Washington and Ohio State, not unlike Emeka Egbuka. And if you get to add both Egbuka and Tuimoloau to Ohio State's class, that's all she wrote. That's the number one class. So right now, we're getting into the nitty-gritty. We have a bunch of dudes that are expected to make their announcements on August 1st. And between August 1st and August 15th, we should know about 4 or 5 guys inside the top 100 and what they're going to do. I have just been blown away by how well some staffs have been recruiting and how good the kids have been about understanding their leverage, understanding their opportunities, and understanding what it means for them to be committed or what it means for them not to be committed. As we've seen Jordan Hancock reopen his recruitment from Clemson and ends up committing to Ohio State. And we're seeing a couple of guys in that class are getting heavy looks from Alabama. They're getting heavy looks from across the country. Devontae Smith was committed to Ohio State, reopens his recruitment, commits to Alabama. It's not impossible. But there's a reason why we're only talking about these squads, right? Clemson, I think, is still going to be there at the end. It's just been wild to know that they go like 8 years without a decommitment whatsoever. And then in the past 4 months, they have had 2. And both of those guys, as with Clemson's class, are top 100 players. Meanwhile, Saban looks at what you've been doing and says, I don't care. I'll go into your class. I'll take what I want. I'll steal your toys from your bedroom. That's fine with me. And he's doing just that. So as we continue to have these conversations about Caleb Williams and Emeka Egbuka and even Prophet Brown, bear in mind that there are some guys that are just better at this than others, and they have built an apparatus where the rich get richer. Wow is where I'm coming down on that. All right, that's it for me. Deuces.